Hi, folks. This is Sarah from the Zen Meathead podcast. I know this may come as a shock to folks, but we are not doctors. No, we don't even play them on TV, at least not yet. We wanted to let you know that these conversations are intended for informational purposes only and should never take the place of honest conversations with your care providers. We are not giving medical or legal advice, so please seek appropriate legal or medical consultation before obtaining or using any drugs, medications, psychedelics, or plant medicines, as their possession and use is surprisingly illegal in many jurisdictions and can have serious medical and legal ramifications. We are exploring this life the same as everyone else, and we want our listeners to stay as safe, happy, and fulfilled as possible. So stay elevated, folks.
Well, welcome back, folks, to the Zen Meathead podcast. We have a wonderful guest in-house today. I do want to start with the little quotes that I always begin with. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Henry David Thoreau. This one became really important based on reading your book, Jen. Originally, we met through a friend, and I wanted to chat with you about yoga. I was looking to have somebody that could really help us explore. You know, we also dive into the woo-woo type stuff.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get a specialist in yoga, but my wife, myself, and my mother-in-law just all read your book recently.
I love that. Thanks.
And there was something that really struck me in the head. I loved all of it. I want to talk about a bunch of it today, but one of the things I had not considered, I had a sordid dating life as well, to put it diplomatically. Mm-hmm. What was interesting to me, though, is it didn't strike me until reading your book that my own traumas and dramas and things that I hadn't explored and healed were actually causing me to attract people that were of a similar mindset.
Right.
And suddenly when my wife and I started to do this transformative work, all of a sudden it was like, oh, there's a whole nother level, a whole thing we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And your book really, really hit on that was, you kept repeating the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was, because you hadn't dealt with any of your stuff. But it seems now you've traveled all over the world. You've explored all kinds of modalities. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm not sure that I did mention it.
Nope.
Your book name, Mind, Body, Soulmate. Mm-hmm. It's available on Amazon.
Yep.
Please do check it out. We'll link it in the notes so people can check it out. It is an excellent read.
We should probably mention Jen's full name so that
That's a good point.
know who she is.
Is it Jen or Jennifer that you like to go by?
I go by Jen. It is Jennifer MacNiven, but
Yep.
I go by Jen with one N.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for making the trek out from Colorado to be here with us.
I know, right?
Yeah, in the snow, no less.
Right? We don't have snow in Colorado right now where I live.
Wow,
so
that's ironic.
I know, it is. I'm like,
Have to come to Bellevue to see the snow.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a former Seattleite, so this is my home too. So I love being here.
This is one of my favorite places in the world. But I haven't experienced Bali yet. So.
That's pretty special for sure.
Let's just start there. It just seems like such juicy stuff. So I don't want to expose too much of the book. I want people to go and check it out and read it. We can talk about whatever you want to, but stuff wasn't going great in your life, and a good friend just cornered you and said it's time to do something wild and different, and you booked a trip to Bali.
Yeah. I took the challenge. It was one of those things like sometimes people say you need permission. Really, we have to give our own selves permission. We don't need outside permission. But at this point in my life, I needed that nudge. Yep. And she was somebody who just said, hey, you've got airline miles. I just had recently lost a job / it was kind of like a purposeful lost job. I was just done. I was done. And we met up for lunch, and she's just like, basically, you have all these airline miles, you have a camera, you love to photograph, you love working with kids, and you have time. And it was just one of those opportunities that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And believe me, it didn't come without anxiety. It didn't come without super nervous to where am I going? So I did. It was a Friday afternoon, booked a trip to Bali, and I left on Monday. And I didn't even know where Bali was. I literally got on the plane and somebody had handed me like a Frommer's, guide. And I sat there and I'm like, where is Bali? I mean, I knew it was an island somewhere and I didn't know it was Indonesia. Like, so I'm like, I'm going to Indonesia? Like, that blew my mind in and of itself. But I had a cousin there that was traveling. And I had met a girl in Costa Rica who was doing retreat centers. And so I reached out to her. She kind of hooked me up with a driver and a place to stay, which turned into
Michael.
Yep. Yeah. So it was interesting, to just choose a place on a map and go. And while the Eat, Pray, Love book was already out, I had never read it and I had never watched the movie or anything. And so for me, I went there blind.
Yeah.
And I love doing that. I love going to places blind, and just, I don't like doing the research. A lot of people that would give them crazy anxiety. And I went with a place that I was going to stay and the rest was literal history.
That's so cool. I'd love to take a step back and ask about the type of relationship you have with the woman that gave you the nudge.
She was really just a acquaintance from another friend. So she wasn't somebody that I knew well. I admired her from afar and I saw her joy. She resonated something really beautiful online. She was also a photographer.
Yeah.
And I was just attracted to whatever it was, spark that she had in life.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know more. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. How do I emulate
why
this?
are you smiling so much? And you could feel her smile. Still to this day, she's, traveling around the world and photographing. And she kind of did her little journey even after I did. But yeah, she was just somebody that I admired from afar, but I really didn't know that well. So it was interesting because when we met, she sat down with a notebook and was like taking notes as I was talking.
Yeah.
I'm like, who does that?
Yeah.
Unless you're in a podcast and you're asking questions, but I didn't know why she was doing that. But she basically was just really listening to what I was doing, saying, and she just regurgitated it back to me that I was like, whoa, okay, yeah, I am unhappy and I do have to get out of this. And I didn't know what that looked like.
Yeah.
I was just going on a month-long trip.
Yep.
And then it turned into 4.5 years.
So you show up Friday to have lunch with your friend. You don't know that you're going to have this mind-blowing conversation.
Nope.
Nor do you know that you're going to be shipping out on a trip in a few days, that you're going to pick a place out of the back of your head, decide to go there, hop on a plane. So, obviously you did a lot of work, if you will, while you were in Bali.
Yeah.
So none of that was necessarily even planned either. It was just, I need to make a change, talking to a friend, threw a dart at the wall. I'm going to Bali.
Yep.
And yeah, the first stint was what, 3 weeks, a month, and then
Yeah, the first one, well, it was a planned month. It
Yep.
ended up being 2 because that's how long the visa is. And so I ended up extending it, stayed the 2, came back to Seattle, sold everything, literally sold everything, rented out my house, and ended up traveling.
So were you involved in yoga ahead of going to Bali and that just kind of took off from there, or?
Yeah, so I actually did a lot of triathlons. So I was working with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society's team in training. I did a lot of triathlons. So
Me too.
yoga was my quote stretch. For me, I didn't have the depth of yoga. I didn't understand the spiritual connection of it. In fact, I always remember, talking about going to Fremont and being like, oh, it's all, all those hippies, or all those, they're just a little weird. And I'm like, oh, I embrace my weird now.
Oh, yeah.
I love my weird. In fact, my boyfriend even says, he's like, I love your weird. His daughter loves my weird, so it's just something that I embrace now. But back then I was judgmental, because I was super judgmental of myself. So then, of course, I was judgmental of others. Now, on the outside, I was super nice and kind. I wasn't
Of course.
Outlandishly being judgmental. But yeah, I had that inner dialogue for sure.
Yeah. Well, and you would never in a million years think to say to another person some of the stuff that you say to yourself in your head when you're in that loop where you're just like, you stop and you think about it and you go, holy crap, I can't believe I'm saying that horrible stuff to myself. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
So
just recently, I did a photo shoot with a friend, and she was just picking herself apart. And I said, "Stop being mean to my friend."
Yeah.
You know, like, stop being mean to my friend.
yeah, that's what I've said. Yeah.
And I was just like, it's not, you know, but I did the same thing. So I get it.
Yeah. And like my rule on the boat, you do not get to talk crap about yourself on my boat.
Yeah.
Like, feel free to do it anywhere else if that's what you need to do, but there is no negative self-talk on my boat.
I love it.
So,
Yeah.
Well, so you get to Bali. So there was a lot of yoga type work, training. You did some teacher trainings, explored some different modalities, as I understand.
Yeah.
Did some plant medicine work as well while you were there. Now, so you get back, you're doing this yoga teacher training. So I'm kind of a yoga neophyte. I started into it a number of years ago, as I think most people do, kind of like that. Oh, it's great for flexibility. As
Right.
I'm getting older, I want to keep my flexibility up. And I had the luck of the second or third school I ran into, which sadly disappeared during COVID, was very much of the hippy dippy woo woo variety, where, you know, these star children and all this stuff. You know, 20-year-old me would have like laughed at these people and made fun of them, but it was
sure.
like every time I'd go into that studio, it was like, you know,
a breath of fresh air.
young,
Right.
old, beautiful, maybe not the most attractive, but just it was like a warm hug every time you'd go in there. And that was what really started to like latch me into yoga, was like, can't explain.
Peace.
Yeah. It always felt so good and so genuine. And now I'm on the hunt. Like, we keep talking about opening our own yoga studio simply because
We can't
greedily
find it.
I can't find what I want. So I'm like, I know the instructors, like we're just going to provide the space and make it happen. But can you talk a little bit, you know, because like I said, I know yoga, hot and cold. And then there's, you know, a few different varieties of classes I've taken. Can you talk a little bit about like maybe some of the different modalities? Like, you know, there's yin, there's flow classes, there's all these different things.
Right.
But I don't know a lot about it. I don't know that a lot of the folks listening know a lot about it, but it's something that I feel so strongly in terms of not only just physical health and wellness, but mental health and wellness. I think it does even more for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Connectivity with yourself.
Yeah. And I didn't know much about it myself. And I actually went through that first 2 months just doing practices at different studios in Bali. And I mean, it's a huge, huge spiritual community. I don't know if you know about ley lines. They're energetic lines of the earth.
Yeah.
And where they cross are like certain hotspots of like powerful energy. And Bali's one of them.
Okay.
And so it's kind of why a lot of people gravitate towards there, like India. I mean, there's just other places in the world that have these ley lines. So anyway, it is a huge spiritual community in and of itself. So I felt like even though I was doing yoga, I was getting that spiritual community that was part of it. So it was like there was this ongoing talk and integration into what I was learning. So it wasn't like, oh, I went and learned it and then I jumped back into, quote, you know, normal society.
Yeah.
So I had kind of an in-depth training, if you will. And then I decided when I left Bali to come home that I was going to go back and do a teacher training. And so when I did the teacher training, I too didn't know. You know, I just knew that the studio that I was at, I liked their style. I liked one of the teachers specifically. And so that's the reason I went back. So I went in kind of blind. So it was more of like a vinyasa flow. It was called Jivamukti, was the base of that. But it was basically a vinyasa flow.
Yep.
But we learned all the different styles. So there's Ashtanga. Ashtanga is the same sequence every single time.
Okay.
People who do Ashtanga, they get to a certain point, a certain move. If you cannot progress, if you can't complete that move to perfection based on their, their guru, their master, whatever, then they have to just only do that sequence up until that point, until they can complete that, to perfection. Mm-hmm. Then they can learn more of the sequence. So they get, it's kind of like you graduate with another move. Mm-hmm. That's not my style because it is so, it's very type A, same thing over and over and over. But for people who like ritual, that is very much their routine. They know what they're doing. They're going in, they're doing the same practice every single time. I like things that are new.
Yeah.
I seek, I love things that are joyful, and I love all the nuances of life. So I like, things that are not a routine. So Vinyasa flow for me was just, paying attention to the instructor. They're telling you what to do and you do it.
Yep.
The funny thing is that a lot of times the instructors would almost like get at you if you anticipated the next move.
Oh, wow.
So what you did in the sequence on one side, but they might switch it up on the other side. So if you're like anticipating, they might catch you off guard. And that's for a reason, because they want you to really be just in the present, like focus and not anticipate. So you're living in the future thinking about what is the next move. And instead they're like, no, be present right now, pay attention, focus, and really tune in. And so for me, my background is physical therapy. So I have my master's in PT. And so I really felt aligned with the physical aspect of this, understanding the body, understanding, the structures of the body, how things work. And so I think for me, I really wanted to focus on the therapeutic aspect of it. I had a lot of low back pain. I had a lot of neck pain. Lifting weights for me, I end up with a lot of neck tension. And this comes from a previous injury that we may or may not touch on later. So for me, I was tired of lifting weights because it was hurting me more than it was helping me. Now, of course, my body was strong, but it always hurt. Yeah. And then yoga helped me be really strong, and I didn't hurt.
No pain.
And so it was a really beautiful, now don't get me wrong, during my teacher training, I felt broken, because you're practicing hours and hours and hours a day and learning. And it was a month-long intensive. So we were there 24/7. And so at the end of it, like my wrist hurt, it's like, I never wanted to do another chaturanga ever. But it was one of those things that just, it broke you and then you put yourself back together. Yep. Which was beautiful, but at the same time, it was super challenging.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It wasn't all just fluffy.
Right.
And spiritual. It was deep.
A lot of hard work.
It was a lot of hard work. Yeah. But so the yin yoga, after my first teacher training, I then did another 2-week intensive of therapeutics. So learning it for the aspect of going back and helping people with injuries. What can they do? What can they not do? And then I met another lady that introduced me to myofascial yin yoga. She called it dynamic spiral yin yoga. But the basis behind that is the fascia is kind of a mesh-like material that is under the skin. I always say, if you look at a piece of chicken breast and, that's raw and you lift up the skin, it's that white meshy material underneath it. Yep. That is attached to your muscles, every muscle fiber, every bundle, your organs, your bones. And so we're all connected. But that fascia also contains all of our emotions. So we have traumas, our body will store those emotions per se. Obviously, our emotions are in our brain, but our body wants to hold on to them. And when you start to open that area up, some emotions can come up as well. So if you think about fear, you think of fight or flight, your hip flexors might be super tight because that's the first muscle that's going to activate for you to run. And so opening up the hip flexors in a long, slow, deep hold. And that will bring you so into the present. It will bring you into your body. And it was really beautiful to have these really focused, specific moves to help open an area of your body. Now, the difference between just yin yoga and myofascial yin yoga is that we use like tennis balls or yoga balls.
Yep.
If you want to be a masochist, you can use lacrosse balls.
Oh, yeah. We have several.
We do that too.
But a lot of people, when they use, a tennis ball or something, they roll and they roll quickly, and your body is like, ow, 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 you know? So if just even saying ow, 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 your body feels like it's just tensing up the whole time. So you're not able to fully relax. So I actually teach myofascial yin yoga now. And I love teaching it because I swear to God, I have never seen people more present ever than when they are in that class.
Oh, I bet.
It is so quiet. And I can ask a question and you barely get a response because people are just so in tune with their body and what they're feeling and their breath. And it is amazing. Nice. It's truly amazing. And everybody walks out of there like Jell-O. They love the feeling and the sensation that they get from, it's really like a deep tissue massage.
Yep.
But the difference is that you're holding something for 30 seconds, a minute. Like if you're working on a butt cheek, you could work on that one butt cheek for 20 minutes. Yep. Like you never feel like you're really done. But I love doing that because it's its own spiritual thing because, you know, you're
breathing through some of the suffering.
Breathing through, yeah.
Because, it sucks.
I call it a sensation, and it's, you know, it's kind of a hurt so good.
Yeah, it's on a spectrum of feels, and sometimes they're not so great.
Yeah. Well, I hate using the P word, pain.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but it is a little bit intense.
Well, and a lot of people, until they get to a point where they can be in communication with their body and understand what they're actually feeling, a lot of what comes across initially is only pain.
Right.
And so until you get to have a more articulate palate to speak from, a lot of it is pain.
That's really interesting. That kind of just brought up a thought. Something we've talked a lot about recently. I think it is an affliction that affects a lot of men, myself included. Men, shockingly, are generally not particularly emotionally aware, especially in their younger years. Some of us never get through it. And I guess yoga did actually help me to awaken my emotional palate. Because as a man, generally speaking, growing up, anything that was on the negative spectrum, I had one release, and that was anger. You know, I could have anxiety, I could have fear, I could have shame, and it just always came out as me screaming and being aggressive and threatening towards people. And it's been really funny for me. I love hot yoga in that respect because I crave the suffering, if you will,
right?
Because it forces you to be present. And then it's like, what am I feeling in my body? And it's funny, sometimes I was sitting in a yoga class yesterday and we were doing these crazy hip opening things on blocks. And I was just losing my mind. I'm like, what am I feeling? I'm like, I'm feeling fear. I couldn't explain why, but it was like, I feel fear. And it's like, cool. Let's just breathe into that for a little bit. Let's just be present with that and see what that's about.
Yeah.
Well, and the number of times that he has like stubbed a toe or hurt himself a little bit.
He's like giggling.
I know. And the immediate anger response that comes from the pain where he's like throwing something or having a tantrum. And I'm just like, it's such a unique thing to sit and watch in real time where you're like, wow, the pain anger thing is just so immediate.
Yeah.
And you got the more mature version of it too, as a young man, like punching holes in walls, hurting myself. I remember my first truck that I bought for myself. I was so proud and so excited. And I like stubbed my hand, kind of like got it partially caught in the door. I kicked my door shut on my brand new truck, like dented the shit out of it.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Then I'm sitting here and I'm like, great, idiot. You had a temper tantrum and you just did like $500 of damage to a truck that you already can't afford. Like, brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's a really hard thing. You know, I can't speak for women as much, but especially for young men, like it's such a common thing. And of course, you know, if you'd talk to 25-year-old Chris about like, maybe you should explore some yoga to explore your emotions. Like I probably would have had some not so delicate or colorful thoughts about that.
Well, I remember one yoga class I did. It was actually the very last class I did, the very first 2 months I was in Bali. And we were talking about, like, I was super sad going back. And they were talking about just embracing, like, can you find joy just even in the littlest of things, like even in the discomfort? And as I'm doing like a down dog, a drip of sweat came off of me and it literally landed in a smiley face. Like a perfect smiley face. And I even have a photo of it somewhere. And the entire yoga class, I'm like, my phone was way over there, and I needed a picture of this. And
Pictures are.
I called the teacher over, and I'm like, look, and she's like, oh my God, people are even, sweating joy. But it was something that I was so proud of that smiley face, that I was in discomfort, but I'm just like, but there's joy on my mat, and I'm staring at it, and it's and thankfully it stayed there the whole time. But it was something where it was hard to, always find joy in things. Like, I think the beauty of it was, sometimes you are angry, sometimes you are going through grief, and to really let that be okay. I mean, when they say this is a safe space, it really is. Like, if people have emotions and stuff, it's welcomed. In fact, especially during the yin yoga, I mean, people are moaning and groaning, and then you can see the people who are like, they want to, but they don't let it out. And I'm like, let it out. Yeah. Like, I even will force them sometimes, just so that people are like, okay, I guess that's welcome. And so then you'll hear them a little bit more, because if you think about our emotions, to release them, you have to do something somatic. Somatic meaning movement. And anger, movement, punching, so you're doing something to release it. Shaking, if you see an animal and they're scared, they shake. They have to transmute it somewhere. They can't keep it in. So that's why dogs forgive, they get hurt and they're like, okay, now you're my friend, like whatever. But a lot of people don't release their emotions somatically. So for me, the whole reason I started doing something different is because I was doing talk therapy. Talk therapy is regurgitating your story over and over and over, and there's a loop that is continuing. The more you talk about the same story, the more you're ingraining it into your body. You're not letting it go. You might be consciously aware that you have an issue. That's great, but you're not letting it go. You might do a lot of things, but you need to do something somatic. So a lot of people, that's why they run. That's why they do exercise, because they're trying to get it out. So the other things I found were breath work.
Yeah.
Breath work is powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I don't do it enough. I actually should be doing more of it. I don't want to shit on myself, but I know, right? She just points at me going, you shit
She's
on
recently
yourself.
started, she's
Right.
like, are you shitting on us?
Don't shit on me.
Right. But I loved it the first couple of times. I mean, it can take you into a totally different world, but you are releasing the trauma through a physical action. You're releasing it through breath. And believe me, when you're doing breath work, you're not just breathing, your body's doing all sorts of crazy things. So it was really amazing. And then when you're talking about yoga and you're like, how do I deal with my emotions? Like, sometimes you're sitting there across from a partner and you're eye gazing. Eye gazing can be uncomfortable. Like
super duper can be.
You're like, okay, I'm staring at this person's eyes. What am I supposed to be feeling?
What are you
This
thinking?
is awkward. Yeah. Are they staring at my nose? What's wrong with it?
Do I have a booger?
Right. There's just
Can they see my soul?
all right. And
Yes.
but that's the thing is yes. So much of that work is mirror work, and so if you have somebody that is navigating the journey of eye gazing, they might tell you to look at your partner and see their child, see their hurt, see their pain, see their beauty, all of that. But really, it's a reflection of yourself because what you see in others is what you see in you. And I think that was so helpful for me because I started seeing people differently, and which obviously was the mirror reflection of how I was seeing myself. And so it was a step-by-step journey. It wasn't just, I did one thing and I figured it out. Everything, everything was just kind of slowly unfolding. And if people understand astrology, I am a double Pisces, Taurus. A double Pisces meaning I am super flowy. I'm just super watery. I'm a go with the flow person, 1,000%. I mean, that's just my nature. That's why I said some people would stress out, with not having a plan. I am not a planner. I have ideas. I have future goals, but I'm not the strict planner. So for me, things were just unfolding step by step, and I just followed. Whatever happened, I just went to that next thing. And it was beautiful. Challenging, don't get me wrong. Had a lot of challenges along the way, but everything happens for a reason. And I loved the full journey. And I'm in a different journey now, so part of me is kind of sad that, that journey kind of got to a certain point and then shifted, which was my solo traveling for 4.5 years. But then when I landed, there was a point. I'm like, I want to meet somebody. And what you were talking about with meeting somebody and attracting the wrong people, I remember the very first, I guess, if you will, it wasn't really a podcast. It was just episodes of Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you've ever heard.
Not familiar.
Okay.
The name sounds familiar.
So Abraham Hicks is a guy who had passed away, and his daughter, Esther Hicks, is basically his translator through,
a medium, effectively.
like a medium. And so she goes out and she does these amazing, conventions and stuff like that. But she is all about the law of attraction. And that was the first time I had ever heard of the law of attraction. And it's bringing things into your vortex. And if you think of, you've probably heard this. In fact, I think as we talked before, like a radio station, you tune into a certain radio station and you're going to hear that frequency.
Yep.
So if you want something different, you have to tune into something different. So you might, high frequency being 107.9, but we, I was playing at 88.5. It's that's a staticky radio station to begin with, there's nothing down there. And so it was just little by little that I kept tuning into a different radio station.
Yep.
Well, it can be really difficult too, because I found as we've kind of worked through this spiritual evolution, if you will, I think back to some of the guidance my father gave me that, just pissed me off and I thought was stupid at the time when I was growing up. But he was like, look, you are your friends. You are who you associate with. And, as a younger man, I didn't have hugely high aspirations. I thought I was, I wanted a nice truck. I wanted enough money to buy beer and party and meet girls. And that was really it. So I hung around people that were invested and interested in the same thing. And it was great as long as that was what you wanted. But as I started to find, that I wasn't happy and maybe I did want more, the first thing that started to change, and it was very difficult, was the friend groups. Some of the people, it was you're super tuned into negative energy and thinking the world is falling apart. And it's I don't align with that anymore. And it's difficult to be around those people now because if you've got shitty negative energy, it's
it just doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
I'm actively trying to tune into another frequency and you're pulling me back in a way.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I did was I don't watch TV anymore.
Yeah.
No news,
never news.
I never watch the news anymore. In fact, I see a commercial, other people will have TV on and I go in and I'm just my body has this physical reaction to it where I'm just ugh, oh my God.
Politics especially.
Well, everything is just, it's fear-based.
divisive.
It's all fear-based and it's just very negative and they want to suck you into that negative realm. And don't get me wrong, I played that game for 38 years. And then when I left, I didn't have American TV, I couldn't watch Balinese TV, and so I was just tuning into other people. I was tuning into new ideas and new philosophies and the new way that they were speaking. There was all these, the town that I lived in was called Ubud, and they called them Ubudiisms. And it was just the funniest thing, they're talking about, I think I can feel my chakra in my navel. It's just you
come from America. You're
right.
What?
I'm what are we talking about here?
Where can I buy what you're on?
Right. I get it now, and it's super funny because when you're in something new, you want to experience it too. So you pick up the lingo and but you also understand things differently. And so when you're talking about the friends, I learned something so new. I think I became a new person.
Yep.
I had all these new understandings, and I'm just like, oh, wait, your belief system, it's really not mine anymore.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was following it because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
I was handed it.
How I was raised.
It's how I was raised. I valued that person and their beliefs, but now I don't.
Yeah.
Not that I don't value them, but I got such kickback.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because people
I
are
lost
invested in
friends.
where you are and
Right.
being where they are.
Yeah.
And if you are in a different place, it's threatening.
Yeah, it was. And, I mean, I also, I'm sure I came back and I'm, kind of like the hero's journey, like, I'm so excited about this. I want to teach you what I learned, and they're like, yeah, but we don't want to learn
Yeah.
Yeah.
what you have to teach. So that was a hard pill for me to swallow because I was so excited to share and people weren't ready to listen.
Yeah.
So it kind of got me kicked out of friend groups because they didn't know how to deal with the new gen. And that was really, really challenging because I was the first of like a specific friend group. I was the first one to kind of depart and go do something. Slowly, one by one, others did something different but similar. So they got it, but they got it years later. In fact, I remember one girl just coming to me, I think it was like 2 years ago. And she's like, I get it now. And I'm sorry. Like there was an apology there because there was a lot of just negative energy towards me. And I was trying to do nothing but pour out positive light, and it's just people aren't ready to receive it.
Yeah. Which is at that point, the only thing I can hope for is to just model joy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I experienced that a lot with people, religious folks.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly religious myself, but some folks I experienced that are like, they kind of bring it up here and there. And if I bite on it, they'll talk about it. Love that. And there's other people that are like kind of trying to shove it down my throat. And it's like, whether I'm not ready or I'm not interested, like it's off-putting to me.
Yeah.
So I try to be very careful these days about like the groups that I speak, like yoga or, hippy dippy stuff. Cause some folks are threatened by it. They're not interested in it. And that's totally cool. It's like, hey, do you?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and Mom and I were talking yesterday, just kind of like, hey, if there's any indication that you are on a good path when it comes to your life journey, it's that you have a life of joy. And so if I can radiate a life of joy, people who are interested will ask how that happens. And people who aren't will continue about their day. And I've learned, or I'm continuing to learn slowly, that I'm not going to offer an opinion if somebody doesn't ask for it. And even if they do, I still may not.
Yeah.
But like walking around going, oh, are you open to some feedback? Like, nah, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does. I mean, it took me time because I am somebody who gets excited and wants to share. And when you get that kickback, you're like, but what did I'll just be honest. I was super insecure, so I wanted to be liked and people weren't liking me. And so then that just led to another issue that
More
insecurity and
modifying your behavior to fit in.
Yeah. And so that's where a lot of the plant medicine work came in.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, and I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's segue to that some. Or I mean, if you were cool to change up.
Yeah.
Well,
So
before we go,
okay. Yeah.
So before you even started talking about it, the myofascial yin, how easy is it to find people who practice that? Like, can you search for it or
you might be able to, some people call it like roll and release. There are some,
you called it vortex something?
no, this one was the myofascial release or dynamic yin yoga. There is a certain company that is doing this type of work, and I actually don't remember the name. But if you look up, yoga using, tennis balls or yoga balls or something like that, there are companies that are teaching just that.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if they're doing it in the same philosophy that I learned it because I learned a lot of like Chinese medicine and, meridians and, I was learning the energy of it, not just a physical, technical part of it. And
Eastern and Western.
yeah, so I think that there is that, but I think it is the Western version versus the
Okay.
more spiritual
I
version.
would love to look into that at some point. So,
Yeah, it's yummy.
So psychedelic exploration.
Yeah.
It's something we've dabbled in a little bit. Familiar
but
with.
don't endorse.
Yes, to be clear, do your own homework. Talk to your doctor.
Yeah.
Be smart. Lots of this stuff is illegal, probably where you are. You know, we had been talking about the joke that the studio we're in used to be, quote unquote, the pot shed, now the pod shed. And you spoke about your own experiences with marijuana and having anxiety. And I have had these issues as well. And as I explore more aggressive or mind-altering substances, you know, you start to think of like DMT and ayahuasca and these kinds of things where you're on a different plane of existence.
Yeah.
Just talking about it with you right now, like I can feel it in my chest. We spoke with another practitioner recently, and I was asking him about mushrooms, and he was like, you know, I was like, what would you have me do if we did a session together? And he was like, 5 grams for sure. And I like just about lost my mind. I was like, I've taken 2 or 2.5 before, and it's really uncomfortable. And he's like, look, you like to fight stuff. You need the medicine to just knock you the fuck out. You need to not be able to fight. But trying to find the courage to have some of these experiences, because, you know, even just edible marijuana, I've had some experiences where like it is not pleasant.
Yeah.
And I know like set and setting and all of these, you know, the basics of psychedelics, but how did you make that initial leap? Because you said you obviously have an anxiety thread as well.
Yeah. I never smoked pot as a, you know, like everybody else was doing it in college and stuff. I mean, I probably tried it once and it made me more anxious. So it was not my drug of choice, I guess. I didn't really have one. I mean, I guess alcohol. Alcohol was mine.
Who doesn't?
I numbed myself, you know, with drinking wine at night.
Yep.
I didn't really know much about it. And I mean, my first journey with mushrooms was done with a group very ceremoniously in Bali. The neighboring island called, there's some other little islands called the Gillies. One of the islands on there is known very much for having a lot of mushrooms, and they have little shops everywhere, you know, that just say, you know, we'll take you to the moon and back. And, you know, we tried it in a ceremony, and I went into basically like a full body orgasm for, I don't know, hours.
Sign me up.
Right. But I didn't know how to embrace joy. I didn't know how to embrace the feeling of being lit up. I was nervous. I cried.
Yeah.
Yeah. we have tissues for this.
It's a pause. This is my Pisces. Any emotion comes out in tears.
I'm good with
But
that.
like, I had to hold somebody's hand
Yeah.
to keep me grounded, because I didn't know what joy felt like. I didn't know what bliss, being out of my body, felt like. And I was terrified.
Oh, of course.
Terrified of it. And so that first journey, even though it was really beautiful, like for me, I was in a space of like a light peach color, and I was elevated above my body, and my whole body was just lit up from every single thing in my body was lit up. And I did not know how to embrace it. So I had that experience. In fact, somebody was like, you won the golden ticket, you know, but I didn't know what to do with the golden ticket.
Right.
You know, so Bali also has positive and negative energies to it. And I remember leaving that ceremony after, you know, everything had kind of calmed down. And I felt negative energy just attach itself to me. It was just like the darkness came in. And so instead of keeping the light and protecting it and embracing it, it was just like all of a sudden I let in icky energy. And so that kind of led me to, I don't know if this is my thing. I don't know that mushrooms, you know. And I was living with a friend at the time, and she was a psychologist, and she had MDMA, like pure, it was actually MDA.
NDA, yeah.
Yeah.
And she had the pure form of it, and she did her own ceremony one night, and in her ceremony, she was like, I was told I need to give one to you and I need to support you. And that was cathartic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugely cathartic. And most people know MDMA is Molly and ecstasy, and ecstasy, and they, have fun with it. This was not fun. It was me putting on an eye mask and sitting in my bedroom. And, I thought I was going to go into another state of bliss, and I did not. The very second something came up, just as a little backstory, I was attacked when I was 20, and my attacker came to me. And he had, actually, I'm going to back up just a little bit. My teacher training that I did with the therapeutic, I had an osteopathic medicine doctor come in, and I was like, my back is just always hurting me. I knew I had a ripped ligament in my spine that creates my spine to touch vertebrae.
Yeah.
And so it's never loosened up. Like, I can't do massage. I couldn't do anything. And so this guy put his hand on the back of my heart and on the front, and he was just feeling, and he's like, your heart is frozen. Your heart is in tissue that is just like adhered to your cavity. And he's like, there is nothing I can do physically. This is all emotional. So here we are going back to like, hey, you got to do something, for the emotional component to release the physical aspect.
Because you're basically in jail.
Yes. And I was, and that's where my anxiety lived, was in my chest.
Yeah.
And so, I was 25 when this happened. And so I'd been living with it, 13 years at that point. And so anyway, fast forward when I was in the ceremony, basically this attacker kind of came to me in my vision, and he was holding my heart. He gave it a kiss and gave it back to me. And he's like, I give you all the permission to kick my ass. And I basically screamed into a pillow, guttural, primal, deep, cathartic screaming for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And it was so amazing. Yeah. Like, so amazing. And I put a pillow over my head, and I remember my friend, because she was supporting me the entire time. And we actually we audio taped it. So I actually still have the audio somewhere. Right. And
That gives me chills.
Yeah. And she's just like, are you okay? Because I had a pillow over my face, because in Bali, noise echoes out into the open. And so we closed all the windows, and I was trying to scream into a pillow just to not be, heard as much. And I mean, the pillow's just sweaty, and, just like I've been breathing into it the whole time. And I took the pillow off, and I'm like, this is some good shit. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. And then I just go back to, fuck you, like, and I did. I mean, it was physical. It was fully, when I say primal, like I didn't know my own voice. Like, it was such a deep, 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 like, just, oh my God, I got to get this out. And so, yeah, that one was really, really, really powerful. And I actually went to a Balinese doctor the next day, or a healer. As you might see in Eat, Pray, Love, like, she goes to a Balinese healer. And I want to say it was the same one, to be honest. But I went there, and, he was doing some little tests on me, and he goes, you just got a new heart, didn't you?
You're like, what?
Yeah, this was the following day. I didn't tell him what I did.
Of course not.
I didn't say anything. And he's just like, you just got a new heart, didn't you? I'm like, yes.
Thanks for noticing.
Right. Like, I felt like I was in the Wizard of Oz, and they're like, here's your heart, and the tension and the anxiety just started to dissipate.
Melt away.
It just started to melt away.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point that you made there, that I just recently became aware of as well. We started working with an energy worker a number of years ago, which when I initially started, I thought was just complete and utter horse shit, but I was really unhappy with my life. I'm like, it's to the point where I'm like, I'll try anything. But so often I'd come in like, my back hurts, my this hurts, whatever. I'm accustomed to Western medicine. Like, oh, you tweaked a ligament, you did this, you did that. And he's like, based on the part of the body, he's like, Are you fighting stress around this? Like physical manifestations of your emotional trauma, discomfort, like it's super duper real.
Yeah.
Like for you to have experienced pain and suffering, like physically, and to be able to have this experience, let that stuff go or deal with it somehow. And then like magically, like, I'm free of physical pain.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
and those experiences interweave themselves all over how we show up, right? Whether it's relationships or physical, like I'm trying to figure out what my body's trying to tell me about my knees. Like, hey, these keep blowing out. I don't know what's happening, but there's something to be learned there. Like, all right, what do we have to deal with?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I love the fact that he was so in tune with you as a person energetically in the world that he could tell just by looking at you. Like, you've had a major shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's so beautiful about that island is that they are energetic people. They pray to their different gods every day. They honor things. Like, we don't honor things here. When we say grace, we're like,
Grace.
God is good, amen. Like, amen, dig in.
Good God, let's eat.
Yeah, right? But, just like paying attention to everything that you are given, and that is energy. Like blessing your food. And, I don't do it enough. But when I do, I'm very thoughtful, about it. Like I used to do a prayer of just saying, honoring the land where the food came from, honoring all the hands who have touched it in their lives, honoring how it was delivered to me, prepared with love. And if any of the negative energy that any of those people had, let it be removed. Because if you think about cooking, normally it's done with love, like our families, it's like, oh, we're cooking because we want to feed, we want to love our mothers, our grandmothers, it's like nurturing. But to use the energy that is in that food, ingesting it, and then for us to raise us to our highest vibrations and then bring that out into the world. Like we don't do prayers like that often, it's very simple and it's not conscious.
Right.
We say a prayer because we learned it, but it's not a conscious prayer of like, oh, I am sending good energy. And it was funny because when I first went to Ubud, I always saw people putting their hands over their food. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? And they're all just sitting there like, saying something in their head. And I didn't know what it was, but that's what they're doing. They're sending good energy. And if you think about that radiates.
Yeah.
If you consciously think about putting that, and we're talking about, healing things in our body, I'm putting good energy to help heal my body as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of physical stuff that I was still ongoing issues, but everything again was step by step by step. Like this wasn't an end all be all, session. That's actually what led me into ayahuasca.
Well, I think that's the beautiful thing is you, once I was able to get past my judgment of more Eastern modalities, if you will, and start to explore them, that was when things started to open up. And as I'd have a positive experience, and then it's like, and you would build and you'd explore more things. And then all of a sudden, you're changing your vernacular choices because just by simple virtue of like being positive with the words that I choose, it's like, I change the energy of the room around me. Like people react differently to me. Like I can literally affect things energetically, which sounds silly to me to even say out loud, but I believe it at this point.
Oh, I don't use the word hate anymore. Like it just.
Oh no, I can't even remember the last time I used that.
Exactly. But, understanding that intentions and words have power and being intentional about the words that we use.
Yeah.
So, and never telling myself like, I can't do that or, that's stupid or whatever. Cause it's just like, it's not, it's just a way of being. So the more judgmental I am about it, the less space I create for people and opportunities.
Yeah.
So,
and it's programming, we're programmed with certain words and certain mindsets and, so to let that go. And I think that's what's beautiful about any type of plant medicine or psychedelic is that, again, you have that loop going on in your head, and then you have a certain visceral reaction to it, be it anxiety, stress, something. And what it does is it stops it.
Yeah.
And it gives you a different physical expression. And so I'm thinking primarily of mushrooms. And what it does is it helps rewire your brain into a new pattern without that physical sensation happening at the same time. So your body can then have that emotional response without the physical. So yes, I was traumatized as a child. Did I have that anxiety associated with it? No, I fixed that. So I can talk about it. Yes, it can be emotional at times, but I'm not triggered the same anymore. And I think that's what really we are, is we're triggered. We learn something, we have a certain reaction to it, we don't know how to respond differently. So working through plant medicines helps you with identifying different ways of being and reacting to things, even though that same, we're not changing our history. It happened. Whatever's happened, but we don't have to respond the same way.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me wonder, because we live in a society right now where there's a lot of conversation about people being triggered. And, you shouldn't trigger me. These are my triggers. You should be mindful of my triggers and that kind of thing. And sitting and thinking about how much we take away from people by tiptoeing around those things. And yes, we want to be mindful and we want to be intentional about how we treat people, but removing the ability to have the conversations about what those triggers are removes the opportunity to deal with them.
Yeah.
And so I think part of what's happening in this world right now is there are a lot of very scared, hurt people who don't have any way to deal with that fear and that hurt.
Right.
And so, and the more that we keep them from being able to talk about it, the more broken we become as a society. So I'm hoping that this forum and forums like this are a way to elevate past that.
Yeah. I mean, there's simple things you can do, and yes, yoga was the gateway for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yoga's a gateway drug.
It is. It really is. And, it just led me to new people, new thoughts, new community, new ideas around things, new experiences. And I'm one that I seek out experiences. I find joy in new experiences. A lot of people are scared to step out of their comfort zone. I step out of mine, even though I am uncomfortable, but it's what's brought me so much healing and new friendships, new ways of thinking. And, I've done so much healing work around it, but then there's always another layer. It's an onion. So I've fixed a good core of the issues that I've had. And like anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, and those things were all consuming. Nobody from the outside world would have looked at me and said that, all those things were happening.
Well, and you can break, 30 or 40 years of habits once you finally have that breakthrough and you address your anxiety. All of a sudden the lights are on, oh, wait a minute, I can fix this. What else can I do?
Yeah. Well, and also recognizing that just because you're afraid doesn't mean you have to not do something. Fear does not stop you from acting. And that is incredibly powerful, that you can act in the face of fear and even transcend further.
Yeah.
I want to come back to ayahuasca, but I was going to ask, is there a chance we could take a quick pause? I need to make a run. So I'm gonna hit pause on this, and we will come back and talk about ayahuasca.
Okay.
So I have that wrapped around.
This is why we need an audio engineer.
It's all good.
Because we can't be trusted. Okay, so we're doing a second set. Cool.
All right, so we have had some wonderful explorations, and we've now come to one of the big ones. One of the ones I have not yet experienced. I intend to, but ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I've heard this is quite the journey. So tell us a little bit about ayahuasca for you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, I don't do my research, as you should.
Just go with it.
Yeah, I'm going to shit on you for that one, but definitely do your research. But I had met some people who were doing ceremonies, and one of the girls that I had met had come back to me, and she needed some integration. She needed somebody to support her because she didn't know what she just saw, felt, experienced. It was, this night of just all these things. And I said, if you could describe it, what was it? And she goes, it was like an alien unzipped my body, crawled inside, and took me on a journey. Mm-hmm. So, of course, my initial reaction is, I don't want to do that. Like, why would I
where do I
that
sign
to
up?
happen, right? Because I don't like hallucinogenics. I don't like to be out of my body. But there was something in the way that she described it being healing. And it was something that I knew just by her saying it, I needed to do it. Mm-hmm. And so literally within a month of hearing about it, I was invited to my first ceremony. Now, I had learned about it, and to go into ayahuasca, if ayahuasca is a vine and a leaf combined, and together they make this hallucinogenic spiritual effect. And you should really be cleansed before you go in. You want to feel pure. You want to feel clean. So no drugs, no alcohol, no meat, no salts, no sex. And so going into this, I did a week-long cleanse. So I did a juice cleanse. So I was just very clean. And then the first night before I did ayahuasca, I actually did Cambo.
Mm-hmm. The frog venom, yeah.
Yeah, the frog medicine. And what they do is they just basically burn a little bit of the dermis of your skin, and they put a venom on there. And this reacts within like 30 seconds. Whereas other, medicines work within 30 minutes, an hour. This is in 30 seconds. So immediately we drink like 2 liters of water, and immediately your body just feels heated from the inside. And what it is intended to do is dump all the poisons, all the toxins, everything that's not necessary in your body. So you purge a lot. And that's the number one thing people say is they're like, oh, I don't want to throw up, but every time you purge, it's like healing, letting go, releasing. And it was just like, yes, get it out. So you purge for a good while. And, but what happens is your body also says, oh, there's a poison. So we're going to send in all the white blood cells. So it activates your body to produce white blood cells. So they go in and they start going, oh, what else can we clean up? So the idea behind it is that it's healing because you're activating your body's defense mechanism. And so I wanted to do that. The way they really want you to do is 3 times within a month. Oh, wow. To really activate the bodies. And I think I did it 2 times within a month. But anyhow, I did the Cambo that night. So it was completely purging. And then the next day, I went and sat in my very first ceremony. And I had no clue what I was getting into. 0. But what I wanted from that first ceremony was, I didn't know what feminine energy was. I had no clue. I was so in the masculine world. I was the go, do, be, see, achieve, accomplish. And I had no clue what it felt like to be feminine. Now, it wasn't like I'm not a girl and I wasn't girly in ways, but I just didn't know what feminine energy was. And so in that ceremony, I said, I want to meet my spirit guides and I want to see this feminine energy. And holy shit, did I get all of that, right? And
in
then
spades.
Yeah. And it was so beautiful, so amazing. And it happened in different forms. Like I saw my grandmother and different women who were in the ceremony would come to me and like offer me their hand to help me in situations. And it was just so soft. It was like this grandma hug that you just longed for. And then I get emotional about it again. My spirit guides are are definitely my grandparents. Even the ones that passed before I really got to know them, they were there. They were there so strong. It was like this lineup of all of my grandparents, and it was almost like they're elbowing to get in first, like my grandma who lived here in Seattle was my number one. She's just in there. She's like, I am here. I'm so glad you're here. We are connected, no doubt. My grandpa came to me and basically was like, he's like, doll, I never really got to show you how much I loved you. And this is the cool thing about this medicine is it helps you remember. It helps you understand the karmic stuff that's happened with your family so that you can do the healing work, not only for yourself, but for them. So my grandpa came in and he was just like holding me on his lap, rocking me, giving me a kiss on the forehead. This is a visual I got. And I am sitting bent over, bubble snot crying. Like no joke, looking so heinous. Like just my hair is everywhere, makeup's everywhere, snot bubbles are everywhere. And I just am a mess. And in that moment, I'm judging myself because I know what I think I look like.
Yeah.
And immediately a message comes in and says, stop what you're saying about yourself. Let it go. Like, this is, nobody's looking at you. Nobody is judging you right now. You are the only person judging yourself. So what's so cool about this is that you can be having one experience and a message comes in. Having an experience and another message comes in. It's like opening up a computer and just all these files are downloading and downloading and downloading. By the end of the ceremony, you're like, oh my God, I have 1,000 files that just downloaded. Like, what do I do with all of these? And I mean, I've done 14 ceremonies. So every single ceremony has had something so cathartic, so profound, so healing. And there's messages in all of it, so my spirit guides are there. I understood feminine energy. I understood what oneness felt like. Like I came into a room and I felt like these energetic lines connecting everybody all at the same time. And you're not really supposed to talk during ceremony, but I came in and I was like, oh, hi, everybody. And this guy was like, she just got it. Okay, she just clicked into what the knowledge is behind this medicine and behind this work. And it deeply connects you with people who have done it. You all of a sudden are like, I get you. I understand what you've been through. You may not have had the same experience, but you've gone somewhere and you've gone somewhere far. I know what death feels like. I know what the other side feels like. I know I have visited with aliens. I have had, they call them little doctorcitos. They're like little blue aliens that came in and took out my heart and they took it out on a stretcher and they went and repaired it and they celebrated it and then they put it back in my body.
Nice.
And they were like, oh, you might feel some surgical pain, because we just took your heart out and we did some work on it, so
Need a little tune-up.
Need a little tune-up. And, it's just like, how do you explain that to somebody?
Yeah.
Right.
I can say these stories and they sound super crazy, but what's happening in there is the message. It's the underlying message. It's the underlying essence of what is going on, the oneness. I am guided by spirits. I am connected with everyone. I can heal myself, and but I was also doing healing work for others.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful. It was like, okay, I'm clearing the lines. Some people have heard this and some people have not, but as a female, your grandmother carried you in her womb.
This was wild. When I read this, it blew my mind.
So your grandmother is carrying your mom, and your mom contains eggs. The eggs are you. So you are technically inside your grandmother. So whatever your grandmother was going through, you energetically got some of what she was going through.
Yeah.
So when they talk about clearing energetic lines, you are looking at least two family members back, if not further, for what trauma you are carrying.
Yeah. And the responsibility that we have, or at least I feel for my life, to try and go through and clear my junk and my family lineage junk so that my daughter has an opportunity to have a different experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's working and I love it. But yeah, it's some shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got a message like, it stops with you.
Me too.
And the sad thing for me was that it did stop with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I ended up having a hysterectomy. I ended up having just a lot of previous traumas and stuff that just my body ended up, not wanting to reproduce.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that was one of those things I just really had to come to terms with, that, okay, thousands and thousands and thousands of people before me, and then it stops with me. And I just have to be okay with that and know that my journey was meant to be what it is, and to really to come back and help others. Like, I love doing things like this and sharing, and I get emotional all the time. Like, I want to do speaking so badly. And I'm like, am I going to be good at it? Because I'm going to cry at everything,
Of course
like I
you
can't tell
are.
a story without crying. But it's that powerful.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. And, when I say I've done 14 ceremonies, I spent 2 weeks in Peru. 1 week we did 4 ayahuasca ceremonies. And then the other week we did 3 San Pedro or Wachuma. So it's the cactus.
Yep.
Ayahuasca, they consider the grandmother or mother. So it's very feminine energy. And if you think about, it's dealing with everything that's inside out. So you're dealing with all the DNA, the karma, the self issues, the family stuff, the beliefs, everything inside is coming out. Wachuma is the grandfather, and it is more like the wisdom of the world coming in.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's so different. So ayahuasca is done at night by yourself, and Wachuma was done in a group during the day with lots of movement. You couldn't sit still with that stuff. You have to move. Like, your body just wants to, you want to process.
Fidgety.
Yeah.
Fidgety, but you're the nature, the people. Like, we went into tribes, like the Shipibo tribe. We went and visited with them. And Shipibo is in ayahuasca. I mean, it's where traditional ayahuasca is from.
Yeah.
There's different types of groups that do these ceremonies, but we would go there, and I mean, we're just a bunch of high white folks is really what we look like.
Yeah.
We're all just like, what is happening? And they're all just, hi. But we're communicating with them energetically.
Yeah.
And we're just watching them, and we're being with them, and we're understanding them. And it's just this deep, pure wisdom and love that just feels like nothing you've ever felt before, because there is a language barrier, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just, there's a deep connection, and they get it because they do it. So they're okay with us being there. But that's the whole point, is that we're being there with them to experience the depth of what this medicine can do. Now, people will do it in their backyards. People will do it, in their home ceremonies and stuff. But I really, really, really value where the medicine come from, as well as the tradition behind it. And that was really powerful for me.
Yeah. I also was very intrigued by the ecstatic dance.
Yes. This is another
Right?
thing I wanted to come around to.
So I'm like, once I'm healed up, I want you to take me ecstatic dancing.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely have one here in Seattle. It's over on Lake Union area.
Tell, you obviously both read the book. What does that mean? What is ecstatic dance?
So, I mean, we all know going out to a club,
Yeah.
dancing, you have a certain move, you're a peacock, you're flaunting your feathers, you have a certain shake that you want to do to be like, hey, look at me. And ecstatic dance is not that. Ecstatic dance is basically a DJ taking you through a variety of music that starts off slow. So there's a warm up, you're stretching your body, you're opening up, you're feeling into who you are. And that was the hardest part for me because I went in and I'm like, I don't know how to feel into who I am.
Yeah.
Like, I know how to shake my ass on a, on top of a speaker at a club. I don't know how to do it when nobody's looking at me. So it's no drugs, no alcohol, no communication, verbal communication. I take that back. Very physical communication, no verbal. So you go in and they take you through this journey of self-expression through dance. And you can do whatever the hell you want. You can roll on the ground, you can shake, you can jump up and down, you can, occasionally people will just scream, just like, wow, like let it out. And you can feel the energy with everybody else, but it's all nonverbal. And it's a no judgment zone. So it's like, again, you could go in there, you can just dance how you want. Now, I had to unlearn how to dance.
Yeah.
To learn how my body wanted to dance.
Right.
And that's what was so key for me was tuning in to be like, oh, I feel like sensual. I feel like I want to like move my body, or I feel like just shaking and screaming, or I feel like jumping, or my hands want to go up in the air. My hands want to go down to the ground. Like I didn't know that I could move that way, like it felt really awkward.
Yes.
And everybody who tries it is like, there's a bunch of weirdos here.
Yeah.
And there are.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of weirdos there that embrace who they are and they don't give two shits. And that's what's so beautiful about it is to learn to not give a shit of how you want to be, how you want to feel, how you want to move.
Yeah.
It's freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we put ourselves in such a small box.
I called it because in Bali they did it too. They did a Friday night and a Sunday morning. And Sunday morning they always called it church.
Yeah.
Because you go in there and just everybody is doing it at the same time. We're all just, somebody's playing the drums and bongos or whatever. And it's just, you're getting into this primalness of dance. I mean, it's very, there's a lot of traditional dance in terms of like African or Brazilian or, the music just helps evoke a certain movement in your body.
Yeah.
And if you think of all over the world, I mean, every culture has some sort of a booty shake,
Yeah.
like, so people are out there shaking it,
Yeah.
And it's not to be sexual. It's just a freedom of movement. And if you think about, you were just talking about how tight your hips were,
Yeah.
so dance would be huge for that because there's a certain vulnerability of letting your legs move apart, squatting down, shaking your rear.
Yeah.
Because it opens up a certain aspect of who you are. So there's so much emotions that come out in that. You can cry, you can laugh.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love it.
And it's got a hang up about dancing.
I
And
do.
I don't know if it's, a standard male thing from growing up and having people be like, you can't be who you are. I know
Judgment.
I know a lot of people, not just men who put themselves in that box, but yeah, there was a thing that happened a while ago where I was just trying to dance with him in the kitchen, just trying to have a good time. And for whatever reason, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And the more I pushed, the more he pushed back, and it turned into a thing. But it was like, for me, it was a bid for connection. And for
Right.
him, it was an assault.
Right.
And it was wild.
Well, it's why the ecstatic dance thing is interesting to me because, it's
Right.
like I rarely would go to dance clubs. If I did, I was super fucked up. Like, honestly, in my 20s, like alcohol is how I dealt with people. I was super social because I had so much anxiety. I would just drink it away. And then I was free to do whatever the hell I wanted. Unfortunately, I was an asshole a lot with it. But it is something I want to explore because, like she said, what was like a cute little, it wasn't even like we were in some big group. We're standing in our kitchen. I think our daughter was in the room with us, whatever, no big deal. Something was so like, no, like back away, like stop it.
Yeah.
I don't know what's there, but there's something there that I need to figure out. So, because the thought when you're like, no drugs, no alcohol, I'm just going like, wait a minute.
Why would I be there?
A bunch of people, and like you said, you're not dancing contemporarily, classically, like you're just like whatever your body is going to do, which I'm sure probably looks pretty ridiculous to an outsider just wandering in off the street.
Totally looks ridiculous. And that's what's so great about it. I mean, the thing is the ecstatic dance that I go to is probably half men, you know, and they go in there, shirts off, and they're doing primal dance. You know, they're like, rah, and they'll come up to each other and they, you know, want to pound on each other's chests and, you know, like they want to be physical about it.
Yeah.
But it's fun. You know, you get a good song that everybody's like, yeah, you know, it's just like you see at a rave or something where everybody's
Super
just
positive energy.
It's just this energy. Like I can feel it in my body right now,
Yeah.
just like tingling. And I'm like, yes, like it's so good. And that's when it's kind of like mushrooms. You get out of your head, you stop telling a story, and you're in a moment doing something physical that's different than what your mind wants to tell you is the way to go. And it's just a freedom to be. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people will just sit there and kind of walk around and bebop and, you know, just watch. Yeah. And that's totally fine too, because you're absorbing the essence of everybody else, you know, sweating it out. And I would, you know, I mean, like, I just recommend going, trying it. And because you don't know anybody there for the most part, that who cares?
Yeah.
You know,
see you
but
again.
most people care. And that's the problem is like, it's hard for me to get people to go with me because they're like, oh, I'm not a dancer.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Yeah. Well, and
My boyfriend loves it. And,
Yeah.
I mean, he loves it. And he, you know, it's almost like he gets into a little rhythm of just like, you know, rocking and shaking and just like, yes, he's in his own zone. We don't dance together. Ever. I mean, like maybe a song might come on and we'll hold hands or something. And then we're like, go do your own thing.
Right.
You know, and he just loves it. And I love that he loves it because I would have a hard time not being able to dance. Even if we're not dancing together, we're in that same energy.
Yeah. Well, it can't be negative for someone for it to be positive for you because it's an ecosystem, right? Yeah.
It's fun.
I
it's
would
so fun.
love to do it.
It's so fun. And, you know, you got to like the DJ. That's the biggest thing for me is like, if you don't like the music and you're not into the music, then sometimes it's hard. But that's also part of it. Sometimes you go to yoga class, you don't like the instructor. You don't like what they're saying. You still do it. You know, you still go through it. You still push yourself, you know, like when it gets hard, somebody's there to bring it up even more. It's like, oh, I want to rest. And then you see somebody just like, woohoo. And you're like, all right, I'm going to absorb whatever they got. And go a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I wanted to come around. So we're all roughly the same age. We're in our 40s, getting towards 50. So I think for all of us, you know, probably, and I think we had a lot of similar type experiences. You know, you and I both raised in like conservative or conservative-ish military type households, you know, so obviously there's a lot of classic stuff that comes with that. You guys have had some similar experiences based on the book and whatnot. So obviously for us in the last 5-10 years, there's been a lot of elevation, if you will, like learning some new stuff, really moving forward, being able to put down some of the baggage through, you know, whether it's yoga or plant medicine or breath work or whatever modality it is that works for you and gets you involved. Talking with Sarah's mom, who's here, she's, you know, in her 70s and talking about, you know, the fourth quarter of her life. I'm curious your thoughts. So in this tiny little fraction of the last part of our lives, we've evolved so much. What's the next step? Like, my eyes have been open to it's like, wow, there was this whole world that I was completely unaware of. And quite frankly, if I had not started to explore this stuff, I would have gone my whole life just like, yeah, life's, you know, life sucks. You know, everybody has to work. Everybody hates working. You know, humans are shitty, terrible people. Like now, like I don't believe in any of that.
Right. Life's a bitch until you die.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
So like, do you have thoughts? Have you started to explore that all of like, what's next? Because now I'm coming from a place of like a world of possibilities. I'm like, what do I want to do next? What do I want to feel next? Like anything is possible now. So it's like, all right, well, probably coming towards the second half of life for us. Like, what's next? What are you planning? Like, what do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the beautiful thing is that it's like I'm still exploring all of this, and I'm finding a balance of being in that world and the traditional Western mindset world, and balancing that. But for me, I just want to keep sharing it. I keep wanting people to put a foot in this other world,
Yep.
because that's just going to be a ripple effect.
Yeah.
You know, the ripple effect is that I learn something, I share it, and somebody else is like, oh, I want to do that.
They learn.
And then they learn
share.
it, they share it, and it's a ripple effect. So energetically and astrologically, the world is shifting to more feminine. We are in that cusp of it happening. And so what we are feeling right now is that shift that's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's like some people were still over here. That's why the world is so divided right now.
People are fighting for things to
People
stay
are
the way
right.
they were.
They want to stay, and that's why the whole patriarchy system is slowly
Crumbling.
it's slowly crumbling. It's still there, but people are realizing, you know, that there's so much more. There's so much more beauty. So you have more podcasts, you have more speakers, you have more books, you have more information. I didn't have all this information before. I could have found it, but I knew nothing about it. It is becoming so common now.
Yeah.
There are Netflix shows like crazy that talk about the, you know, mushrooms and
Mind-body
ayahuasca
connection and
yeah, like goop and there's so many things where before that wasn't available to us.
Yeah.
So I think the shift is that people are going to keep wanting to try new things. They're going to want to expand. They want to get out of their comfort zone. They want to get out of the stuckness. I've got more friends going through divorces right now because they got in the traditional mindset.
Yep.
And whether it's a religious belief or not that you're supposed to stay in one, they're like, there's so much more.
Not enjoying
There's
my life.
so much more that is going on. And so I really feel that people are just seeking out more joy. They're trying to deal with their issues. Everybody's got something, you know, and I feel that, like for me, I want to continue this work with retreats. My photography is something that I do and I love I love to help people be seen. I feel that when people see themselves, it's really transformational and healing.
Yes.
And to do that in a retreat setting of maybe having the modalities of yoga and breath work and sound healing. And, you know, I don't know if there would be a plant medicine or not, but then also a photography session at the end.
Yeah.
Because people transform during a retreat in a location. And I feel like
Or
your
even before and
mom-
afters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before and afters. Like your mom would benefit from retreats, from learning something new. Just because we're in a certain age bracket doesn't mean that you can't try something new.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a scary new. It doesn't have to be a so outside the box new, but it's new. And so I don't see myself not working. You know, a lot of people look at life as like, oh, I have to retire. Like, I want to keep offering.
Is that really work for you though? Because, you know, just
Yeah.
your physical energy is speaking
Yeah.
right now of like,
Yeah.
you're doing your passion.
Yeah.
It doesn't strike me as a job. It strikes
Yeah.
me as joy in motion.
Yeah. And I think my mission in this world is to help people be their best selves. So like, however I can do that, that's really what helps me feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And so I think for the second half of life, third half of life, you know, last quarter,
the fifth half of life.
yeah, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's no reason that you can't continue to seek out joy outside of our norm. And we just get so stuck inside our daily routines, what we know. I mean, you know, you got Eventbrite out there. You could just type in something super random and find an activity for that, you know, go join it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many options of just getting outside and trying something new. And that's what my book offers. You know, I think at the end of every chapter, I give reflective questions.
I love them. You should put those in a workbook.
Get the journal out.
That would be really good.
Because I've already told her, I'm going to copy all of those down and put them in a notebook for you to fill out and keep track of, because that's what she wants. So
Yeah. And I think that, you know, doing some self-reflective work, trying something new, I just think that's the way to continue to move forward. I call it spiraling up. You know, like, yes, I might come in a circle and it might feel like the same thing, but I'm always trying to do something.
Something new.
Yeah.
You know, my boyfriend and I might get in a little tiff, you know, and it's like, but there's always growth coming out of it. You know, there's always a lesson. There's always something. And I'm like, okay, we're spiraling up. Might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but there's just a growth mindset.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I would love to see is people being able to answer the question of, if you tell yourself you can't do something, really looking at it and going, why? Why is it that why do I say that I can't do that? Like, I couldn't go to Bali, or even the conversation about, well, I can't join the 2020 program. Like, it's too expensive. It's too time consuming. It's too hard. It's too this, it's too that. And so the times that we tell ourselves that we can't do something, look at it and go, am I like, is that real that I really can't do that? Or am I just telling myself I can't do that? And are you willing to step outside of that comfort zone and just try it? Yeah.
It was funny. So many people ask, they're like, how could you travel for so long? You know, like, how did you fund it and stuff? I'm like, it is so much cheaper to live outside the US than in the US. It was so cheap. I lived literally for $1,000 a month, having rent, a motor scooter, yoga, dance, massages weekly, if not bi-weekly, the most healthy food, everything for $1,000 a month.
We barely leave the city, and we couldn't put gas in our vehicles for $1,000 a month.
Well, and we were watching a show on Netflix. It's the world's most interesting vacation rentals.
Oh yeah,
and they were talking about a place in Ubud, a birdhouse.
Yeah,
there you $24 a day for a bed.
Yeah,
and you get access to the whole property. You're like, $24. I could do that.
And I also traveled using trustedhousesitters.com.
Yeah.
And I house sat and pet sat.
So it's a job. You get paid.
You basically live somewhere for free while you are watching their pet. And I had access to, most of the time I had access to their car. And I was in Scotland. I was in England. I was in Spain. I was in Australia. Cool. And I'm house sitting for people for free. I have a free place to stay. Wow. I was in Spain for a month, and in a little town in Andalusia, you know, and so I just got to travel.
Wow.
You know, so it's rent free, you know, and then, you know, you get to explore and go see things. And it was such a cool way to see the world. And again, it was all unplanned.
Yeah.
You know, you could get online, you could sign up. I think it was like $99 a year. You sign up and you have an application. You send in like, oh, these people want somebody for a month and they have, you know, dogs. And okay, I want to go to that place and house sit some dogs. And
that was literally the first thought I had. You know, we read the book and I was like, I want to go to Bali. And she was like, that sounds amazing. And we saw that show and we saw parts of Bali, like, we need to like start planning this. And the first thought through my head was like, our house and our cats. Like, I can't take, like, what am I going to do with the cats? Like, if we could have somebody come and just like, hey, stay in our house. Like, make sure the boys are okay. Like,
do an exchange program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are always wanting a place to stay. I mean, there's always somebody willing, you know, you just have to, you know, make sure you do your due diligence and find a good person. But that's what Trusted House Sitters is because they do background checks.
They vet.
So it was really cool to do that. And just as another side, I worked as a private massage therapist and yoga instructor for a family in Geneva, Switzerland. They're billionaires, and I lived with them for 3 months in their home. I had my own floor, own kitchen, And
Holy
they
shit.
took me everywhere they went. So I got to go to these 5-star resorts in Switzerland with them and their kids. And I taught them yoga every morning and gave them a massage once a week.
Wow.
What a slick deal.
They paid me and they paid for all my stuff.
Ow, twist my arm.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't sign up for that job. I wasn't researching a job like that. It was just something that unfolded. And somebody said, hey, would you want to do this? And I said, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I do.
And yeah, to be open to it. Just be like,
And then I got
yeah.
I got the experience of, being in Switzerland and France for 3 months.
So freaking cool.
Yeah. So there's so many, and I'm saying that not to tell my story. I'm saying that to say there are so many
Open the possibilities.
opportunities out there. And with all of the TikTok and the promoters and the sponsors and stuff like that, I mean, they're paying people to go out and do this stuff,
People could pay for this
Yeah.
podcast. Just saying.
right?
Open for sponsorship.
Right?
Yeah. But one of the things that we've really been focusing on in our journey of manifesting is paying more attention to the what and less to the why and the how, and really trying to get clear on what it is that we want to build.
Yeah.
And then
Let
putting
the
it out
universe
there
figure it out.
and like not being attached to how it happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And for me, it's fun to not know and then just to be a witness to what shows up.
yeah.
But I'm putting that energy out there. And I mean, that was
Tuning in.
kind of the end of my book is that, I was constantly putting the energy out there, attracting the wrong people. And then eventually with these travels and the self-knowledge and the awareness and the learnings and the healing, that I kept spiraling up. And finally, I'm playing at 107.9 radio station and I'm putting that signal out there. And I had attracted somebody at that same level.
Yeah.
He hasn't done the same things I have, but we met each other at a same level of like, oh, I've done my work. I know my shit. I know who I am. We still get our triggers. We still, there's still stuff to work on. There's still stuff to learn. There's constant growth to be had. But we met each other at a time where we were both energetically aligned because it was funny. I dated a guy right before him and he had reached out to me and said, hey, I'd like to meet you. This was a Tinder. It was I was the proverbial, online dater since 2001.
Oh, you started right when it came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was the original Match.comer. Never married, no kids, and this was his first online date.
Oh, no way.
You jackass, you won, But,
Who got the golden ticket?
right? So, when I put myself out there, I put myself out at a different energetic state. I'm like, I'm not settling. This is what I want. This is who I am. This is the joy in my life. I don't need a man. I want somebody in my life, but I want them to meet me where I'm at. And we align that way.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And we continue to, we have our extreme differences, but we also have really powerful connection to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, babe?
No, I think
Yeah.
we're good.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Yeah. It's kind of not even a summary of the book, but some little
You got
highlights.
some tidbits. And
Well,
it's-
you want to leave the mystery
Yeah,
for,
right?
for other
definitely
people. Check it out.
Check her out.
It is
Jennifer
a-
MacNiven, Mind, Body, Soulmate. You can find it on Amazon. And I heard rumors that there might even be a second edition in the future.
Yeah, it'll be a second edition paperback. So right now
Nice.
it's just on Kindle.
Well, make sure you include a workbook.
Yes, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
See, you learn something from
Yeah.
somebody and you will take it and run with that.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for making the trip out, spending
Thank
the time
you.
to
I appreciate
talk
it.
with us. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to the pod shed.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I hope it helps somebody.
Yeah.
you
Oh, I'm
know,
sure it will.
And just to get out there and try something new.
Yeah. I'm going to be passing your book out to some people.
Thank
Be
you.
like, hey,
Merry Christmas.
here's some thoughts.
well, thank you, folks. We will talk to you soon. Stay elevated.